So my name is Sarah Clausen, and I work in the Academic Advising and Career Center. And I'm an academic and learning strategist here to support folks in their academic endeavors around policies and information around learning strategies. And I'll let Romeo introduce himself.
Yeah, and my name is Romeo. I'm an Indigenous academic advisor and career strategist, same department. It's a pleasure to be here with all you folks today. And time management also plays a huge role in terms of your career journey. So thinking ahead a little bit as we kind of progress through our slides, just kind of keeping that piece in mind as well.
All right.
And with that, today's agenda, really, we're going to be discussing some of the challenges during this pandemic, tapping into a bit of how our brain works under stress. Where does your time go? We have a little exercise, planning and being efficient. We're going to hopefully have everyone leave here with some resources, a daily planner as well that you can take a look at, a bit of prioritizing, do a little exercise there, engage in some discussion, and then hopefully finish off on time with everybody having some resources. And I will just say quickly, as I do with all sessions, this is an introduction to a larger discussion. So please do not feel that this is a one and done. If when our session concludes, you want to discuss a little further, feel free to give our main office a call and you can set up a one-on-one appointment with the first available academic learning strategist.
Oops, one too many.
And I will quickly start by saying that I myself am located right now in Robinson, Huron Treaty Territory. UTSC is located on the Williams Treaty. And with that, our land acknowledgement.
We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates.
For thousands of years,
it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat,
the Seneca,
and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island.
And we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land.
All right. So we did chat a little bit as we started off around some of those things that can be known as a distractor. But what has been your biggest time management challenge? So maybe not the things that are pulling us away from organizing, being engaged in our classes, but what has been difficult about the process, maybe setting down to tasks. If we're able to identify what that barrier might be, then of course we can help develop strategies around mitigating those challenges or removing them altogether. So it's really important that we try to be as reflective as possible, thinking about different environments, how maybe the pandemic has impacted our location or the different type of learning that we're going to engage in. So if comfortable and you have some time to think about it, what are some of those challenges to your time management that you'd like to work on? Or at least identify as you begin your fall and winter semester. All right, we have some coming through on the chat. Ooh, spending too much time on one test to make it perfect. That's me too. Putting your whole focus, some motivation. All right. I'm happy to see these barriers because that's what we're going to talk about today, but it's also really good for ourselves to recognize some of these pieces so that, again, we can make plans to really address them or know when we can pull ourselves out of these sort of downward spirals of lack of motivation or procrastination so that we can achieve our goals. Not planning ahead. Yes, we can work on some of those too. And again, as Romeo said, this is the beginning of conversations. Throughout the year, we'll have more workshops to address all of the things that you've shared. Thank you for sharing. So, as we addressed and as you've shared here, some of the biggest time wasters or things that are pulling focus from what we need to focus on can be, right, social media, surfing the web, and especially in our online format where we're being asked to now engage and learn online with all those tabs available and YouTube just being a click away, it can be really distracting. And maybe that plays into the idea that we can multitask and have all of these tabs open, being able to be productive in that space, which has been proven by research to be a myth, right? About 40% of the time, spent online involves procrastinating or engaging in activities that are pulling away from our focus. And that's a lot of time. And what that means for us is that, again, we'll be repeating activities, having to re-pull or pull our cognitive awareness back to the task that we had set out in the first place. And again, then it cuts into our social time. It cuts into our time with family and friends, or it can be really, it can lose our motivation to continue when we have to keep coming back to the same task over and over again. So it's important that we need to be, again, more self-aware as we try to maximize our time and our productivity as we engage in this new environment. So again, in this year that we've had, and as we move into a different way of learning, there's been a lot that's changed for students and for staff as well. All of us has had to adjust to a new study environment, and that might have put some constraints on the way we normally ingest our information and understand pieces. And so not only dealing with some outside environment factors, we now have to develop new strategies to be successful. We have a limited amount of privacy with work and in school now being in our personal space, and dealing with some self-isolation that can affect maybe our social engagement. The peer support that we had previously can again be a really big impact. With a hybrid delivery, hopefully in fall, and some classes being online or in person, even that shift as well can pull our focus, and it can be hard for us to be productive. It's really important, again, to look at ourselves as a student in a holistic approach. So how is our diet? How is our sleep? What sort of activity are we getting in our bodies if we've been sitting for a long time? All of those pieces are going to contribute, hopefully, to our academic success. So it's not just study, books, time management, and cramming, but it's our holistic approach to our learning. And again, the last piece, maybe there's been some stress around the impacts of pandemics. And then again, that has some impact on our ability to really attend and focus. So we need to make sure that as best as we can, we're reaching out to the appropriate resources on campus to support with some of those pieces. Our office, health and wellness, the Center for the Writing Center as well, right? To complement all those different pieces to hopefully contribute to our success as we move into our fall and winter semester. Another thing that we're hearing from students is that it can be really hard to focus, right? And especially when we have the distractions that come from being online, as well as everything else that's going around us. Our brain is in a different state of learning or a different state due to some of the worries that have impacted our ability to maintain that focus. So to compensate for this, we may need to work a little bit harder and build in a stronger sense of routine around the tasks that will be part of our academic journey in the fall. So as some of you said, it's really important to set a schedule of what our work will be like, what our off time will look like, so that when we're ready to engage in our learning, our brain knows what to do and we can accomplish these tasks. Sometimes these can be conflicting messages, but the longer that or the better able we are to set routines, hopefully now, when we move into our academics in fall and winter, they can be habit and something we can fall back on as we move into our studies.
And so just to build off of what Sarah was discussing earlier, productivity for the new school year. Before we dig into these points, I just want to quickly bring it back to the land acknowledgement. The importance of the land acknowledgement is really a recognition of where you are in this place and time. And so with that, when we're talking about time management, we're talking about academic stress. One of the important strategies before you can discuss anything else is getting grounded, right? So grounding yourself, taking time out to just take a couple of deep breaths and really start to prioritize. And with that, you can then start to be a bit more strategic in terms of the planning process, in terms of how you're going to prioritize certain things. You can schedule more time for tasks, and you do what you need to do and really nothing more. I think that was earlier one of the comments we had in our chat was having to have things perfect, right? So you do an assignment and you really want to make sure that it's perfect instead of getting the parameters done and then moving on and circling back afterwards if you're able to. So yeah, just some strategies in terms of how to kick off your new school year. And so in terms of planning, we often ask ourselves, where does our time go? And so when we're trying to plan or when we're trying to create a starting point for ourselves, we are going to really evaluate, take our entire week, number of lectures we have, and we're going to start being strategic about how we can divvy up our time as a resource. So if we can go to the next slide. And actually probably even the next one now. That would be great. So we're gonna do a short exercise here. And this exercise really, as I said earlier, is designed for you to reflect a little bit about where your time goes, looking at your time in the course of a work week, in a 7-day cycle even. How much sleep do you get? How much time do you allocate for sleep? How many lectures do you have in the course of your week? Are you taking into account labs and tutorials when you're budgeting those lectures? You also want to look at part-time employment. So the number of hours you have, what do you have to work, and compared to your labs tutorials, and comparing that also to the amount of sleep that you get, and so on. So preparing meals, life management, so little things like grooming, housework, laundry, running errands, you want to account for all of this, even your exercise. Exercise is extremely important. I'm not referring to hitting the gym necessarily, but being aware that you should stretch, you should go for a walk outside, you should, try to build in some elements of physical activity. Socializing and connecting with family and friends. Now, of course, if you combine those two, that's great. If you can go for a walk outside, socially distancing, keeping safe, it's a great way to build time with family and friends, but also time online. So how much of your time is spent just surfing the internet as opposed to a very specific search or a very specific purpose when you're online. And then, of course, you want to build in relaxation and downtime, and then certainly volunteer work. Volunteer work also including your travel time. So these are things when we're discussing our time, when we're discussing the number of hours in our day, we can sometimes shortchange ourselves and not even realize it. So if we can spend perhaps maybe not very long, maybe the next 3 to 5 minutes, that would be great. If I'll just give you some time to review the worksheet. Sarah, I believe, put it in the chat here. So take a look at that, and we will discuss in the next couple of minutes. So I'll give you, again, 3 to 5 minutes. Take a look at it and spend some time right now, especially after you've just chosen your courses for your fall and winter. Tease out, what does it look like? Where is your time going to go? So with that, away you go. No, there will be, Stephanie, thanks for the question. There's no breakout rooms. This is just a chance for you to kind of sit down with your own schedule, taking a look at the total hours in the work week, for example, 168 hours. How are you going to divide that up based on your own needs, your own schedule, right? The number of classes you have, the hobbies, the socializing, the entertainment, all the stuff that you want to accomplish in the course of just a regular week. How are you going to divvy up your time? So that's really what we're looking at here. We'll give everybody another 2 minutes before we discuss, and not expecting you to have everything ironed out. This is really just the the exercise is to start thinking about that work week, start thinking about how you're going to divide up your time a little bit. So this again is a work in progress. You're going to have some time after we part ways to dig in a little bit into a daily planner and develop some more concrete strategies. But for now, this is kind of just an introduction. I have about another 20 seconds or so, and then we'll jump back in. Okay. Okay, folks. So I guess before we start digging into some questions, I'm curious, sir, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts about time allocation in the course of the week before I kind of share my 2 cents?
Just to double down on what you said about how we shortchange ourselves. It's really helpful if we, set our best intentions, being honest with how long it takes us to do our tasks and not being embarrassed if it's longer than what you think it should be. But then in some of the other worksheets we have, going back and seeing what actually happened. How long did it actually take you? Did something get in the way? If the thing that got in the way is something that's habitual, and that's okay, then you just need to reallocate or shift some of those things around, just so that you're as honest with yourself, your space and time as possible, so that you can plan accordingly.
That's a great point. Absolutely. And I think the easiest way to get started with this, because some of us might not have all of these pieces figured out, right? So I don't know if I'm going to be employed in the fall. I don't know right now. I still have maybe another class to pick. So start with the known variables, things like relaxation. How much time do you spend online? How much time do you spend socializing? Exercise, all that stuff now. And you'll see really quickly that, okay, this is my summer schedule. I need to start making some changes and reallocate some of these resources in the coming weeks. So before we move on, does anybody have any anything you'd like to share? Is there any surprises when you were going through this? Anything that stood out? Anybody starting to run out of time? You can share your thoughts in the chat with us. Just a quick comment before we move on. If you're anything like me, as you're looking through this, you'll start to scratch out things before you even start, right? So things like relaxation or things like socializing, right? For me, I'll think, you know what, I can make adjustments by chipping away at those pieces. I can allocate more time to things like studying and lecturing, lectures by chiseling away things like exercise. I don't need that. I walk to class. But really give some thought to giving yourself a bit of time that you need. We have a comment. I think I spend more downtime than I might need sometimes, but it depends on how busy the day is. Absolutely. And you'll find it also depends on the time of year too, right? Because in the terms of your rhythm, your cadence in the school year, you'll be surprised at how there'll be a lot of devotion, a lot of energy at the start of the year, maybe in the middle it dips. I mean, you'll have highs and lows in terms of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that, Megan. Very good. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm surprised at how much time I spend on one task. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You went over 160 hours. Right? And I think it's helpful to see it on pen and paper, right? To see it the actual circumstance in which you are in to see where adjustments can be made, or not, depending on, and maybe just reallocating or reframing. I've heard from students that guilty feeling when they have their downtime because they're worried they should be doing something else. So if we, again, organize and we know and we can fully enjoy those spaces away from our academics because we've done what we needed to do. And so there's no guilt or worry in that space, which is really important.
Right, that's huge. That's huge. The guilt piece is a big one as well, because you know whether or not you've given it your best effort, right? That's really what it's stemming down to. I've never felt guilty for relaxing after I know I've busted my butt and I've done everything I could. So, and this is also something that takes time to build, right? So it's going to take a little bit of repetition, and it's going to take some adjustments along the way. And as Sarah had mentioned, our daily task planner, right? So when you see everything laid out, it certainly does change things. So if we can go to the next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna quickly, we kind of alluded to this earlier, but you're gonna really have two types of schedules. You're gonna have your term schedule, which really is gonna list out any important dates, assignments, tests. I recommend when you're jotting these down on a calendar, make sure that you give yourself a couple of days. So I've actually done this when I'm at the start of my semester, I'm writing out all my assignments, my tests, everything. I will, for assignments, back the due date up by a few days. And that's actually helped me. I've always thought, it's the deadline's coming up. And I've tricked myself into giving myself a little bit of extra time. So be mindful of that. Be mindful also in your term of special events, celebrations, holidays, meetings, workshops. Schedule time also for tutors to get extra help, to get support from AA and CC. How are you going to access certain services? And then, of course, any personal appointments within your term, you want to try to map those out so that you can certainly have a bit of a long-term view of what's going on. And then, of course, you're going to have your weekly schedule, and these are just some steps to kind of how to set that up. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You want to add some of those fixed activities, so repetitive weekly things like lectures, work, any studio time, study blocks, for instance, and adding the time. So there's a couple of things. One, when you add, you want to add study time, and you're going to want to add that after your lecture in some cases. So when you're adding things like lectures into your schedule, it's not enough to say I have a lecture from 1 till 2 p.m. I would put it on my schedule as I have a lecture from 12:30 to 2:30, for example. If my lecture is an hour long, I attach maybe 15 to 30 minutes at the start and end. It gives me time to prep before my lecture, and it gives me time to digest and review after my lecture, the lecture is over. And certainly make sure, as we said earlier, to take care of yourself. So this includes personal responsibilities. I include personal responsibilities to yourself, making sure to kind of budget time with family and friends and so on. When you're doing, and it's the same thing. So as we said, tacking on a bit of time before and after a lecture, you want to do the same thing with social time. So if you're traveling somewhere, you want to attach on to that 20, 30 minutes before and after. So making sure you're not shortchanging yourself. You really want to try to make sure that you're accurately representing your needs along the way. And then, of course, once you have these pieces in place, next slide, please. You will take them and be dropping them into a daily task planner. Now, you have the option to use what we have here. Obviously, there's a number of options on your smartphone. You can budget, you can set reminders, notifications, alarms, and so on. I also recommend, if you are using a smartphone, regardless of the model, that you are synced up. So making sure that you are using, say, U of T, your UToronto email, make sure that you are able to access that on your phone. So you don't want it to just be only accessible on one platform or device. Just kind of keeping those logistical things in mind. Yeah, Sarah, do you have anything that you want to add?
As you were talking, I was thinking about maybe some of the differences that COVID has brought to us in that time management piece. If there's, health checks that you have to go through just to get into classes or places, or that's going to impact your commute. I know I've been surprised where I thought I'd be on time, but nope, I forgot my mask. So I had to walk back to my car. Then I had to do this check and like small things that do add to your day. But I would also just, again, be really reflective around like your best time to learn. Sometimes there are lectures scheduled, and so that makes it more difficult. Maybe, again, not scheduling 9 a.m. classes or whatever the case may be, but being mindful about where you put your tasks. If the goal is, I'd love to be that kind of person who woke up at 9 and hit the ground running and did all those things. But if your body says no to that, stop planning things in that space, right? Because you're never going to get to it. And that's okay. Our bodies are different. Our rhythms are different. But again, just that self-reflection and really knowing when are you on? When are you fresh? Is it after the gym? Is it after a walk? Is it after prayer time? When is it for you? And that's how you can also work on a schedule that's more individualized, that can be adhered to, which will increase motivation, which can help you feel positive and confident about the things that you're getting done, right? And so it can be a very positive cycle if you're attuned to what works well for you, your learning habits, and some of the commitments that might impact daycare, drop off, picking up siblings, all of those pieces, but just plan as honestly as possible for the life that you live, for things that can't be avoided, so that you can feel the most success by checking those things off your list and feeling really empowered by the hard work that you're putting into your academics and the other side of the house.
Geez, that the word that stood out to me is resonating honesty, right? It's resonating in my head because I've tricked myself in the past. I have, right? I've always, you run into this, sometimes when you're planning your time, you can run into a bit of challenge, right? The person that you want to be versus the person that you are. So I portray a well-organized person that is not a procrastinator, proactive. Of course I do, right? Because that's my outward scope. I want my employers, my colleagues, my friends to see me that way. But when I'm planning my time management, I need to be honest with myself and saying, okay, this is the daily planner of what I'm working toward. This is the daily planner that's going to be representing who I am right now and what I'm working on. So yes, you could still be someone who's proactive, who's an academic, U of T student. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But part of being a student means that, as Sarah said, we're being honest with ourselves and recognizing what it is that we need to do. And so with that, if I can just quickly give a plug for our academic dates, because earlier we were talking about term planning. And when we're being honest with ourselves, we sometimes need to have an exit strategy, or we need to pivot, make some changes. The important dates that we mentioned in terms of term planning, really, this is what I'm talking about, academic dates. When is the last day to drop a course without me having to pay for it? When is the last day that I have to drop a course without it impacting me academically? When's the last day I can drop a course before it's reflected on my transcript? So making sure that you're really tapping into your academic dates, right? Not just due dates, you want to write down those dates, right? When's the last day to make a change to my schedule? Write that down. And so I think in doing that, it gives you a chance to really be flexible. Also combining that with tapping into services around campus, shameless plug to AA and CC, but I think it's a good opportunity to meet with an academic advisor on occasion to discuss some of those things, right? What does being flexible look like to you? So don't be afraid to tap into those services around campus. And when you do, you'll be able to set goals for yourself that are more meaningful, but also very, just specific to you as an individual. And when you're looking at creating goals, you want to make sure that you're creating SMART goals. You folks, I'm sure, have heard this before, but as I said, specific, not only to yourself, but specific in terms of what it is that you're going to do. So to say, I'm going to start the school, this year, I'm going to do it. Right? I always tell myself that this year, I'm going to do well. I mean it this time. What does that mean, right? What does meaning it mean? if you're not writing anything down, you're not making notes of deadlines, due dates, etc. That brings us to measurable. So you want to, once you're being specific, okay, this time I mean it. Okay, well, meaning it means what? How are you measuring that? How are you measuring that level of determination? So making sure that your goals are measurable, you are keeping track of your progress, you are looking at your goals and making sure that they're action oriented, making sure that in having them action oriented, they're also attainable. And with that, you want to make sure that your goals are realistic, relevant. My personal favorite also, research driven. So it's not enough to say that, you know what, I'm going to cram. It's always worked for me. Cramming has always worked. Yeah, but it's not only is it not really realistic as you progress through post-secondary, it's also not research driven. So you're not going to, sure, maybe you'll get through your first midterm, but what happens when you are now in your second, third year and you're struggling to pull on content that you should have learned from years of cramming? So making sure that you are using just some good, sound, research-driven methods of success, and timely, making sure that you're making these goals in a timely manner. But also by that, I mean, make sure that your goals are visible. So I always recommend when I'm working with students to make a 1-year plan, make a 3-year plan, and then build on to a 5-year plan. So with a 1-year plan, you're talking about things just, you know, within that 1 year, midterms, what does that look like? What does the cadence of that first year look like? A 3-year plan, you're talking about how you can take that 1 year success, that cadence, that rhythm you built in that 1 year, and how can we duplicate it now 3 times? And what am I hoping to accomplish at the end of that? And theoretically, hopefully, by the end of that, you will be graduating and finishing at U of T. And then the 5-year plan kicks in, because then it's like, well, now what? Are you going to search for employment? To say I'm going to find a job, well, it's not very specific, right? So what does that look like? And how can that 5-year plan fold into perhaps further education, grad school, even just employment, right? An entry-level position into a project lead, into a manager, into a senior manager as time progresses. So again, making the time to plot those pieces out and meet with academic advisor, but also a career strategist, a career counselor, who's like, that's our job, right? Is to work with you and be on your side. So if you're ever sitting in, you know, that space, that headspace of loneliness, feeling like this is an uphill battle, you're really struggling, get in touch with us. We would love to chat with you a little more and hopefully connect a little bit of your academic progress with some, you know, some long-term thinking, some career goals and so on.
Absolutely. All right. So before we move into a breakout group, I just wanted to talk a little bit about procrastination and staying motivated, as was identified by some of the comments in our chat box, and something that can usually be tied to time management, this idea of procrastination. And just challenge you to think about, where does your procrastination sit? Like, what is the cause? Research says it's not technically about being lazy. There's usually a reason that we're putting something off, that we're not attempting or trying or even doing a little piece to move us forward in terms of progression in that space. So to better understand, I know students have shared, you know, I didn't start the assignment because I actually didn't understand the instructions. I didn't know what I was meant to do. So it wasn't about being lazy. I just needed to speak with my professor or TA to know a little bit more so that I could start. I didn't know where my resources were. I don't know how to use the library database. I don't know how to do my referencing. And so I didn't start that part of my project. So I know a challenge for U of T students who are high achievers, who are really good in their academic space, is worrying about failure, about not being good enough, or having perfectionism. It needs to be perfect the first time, or I'm not even going to attempt it. And so those are some of the conversations I've had with students around what is actually stopping you from starting. So if we can identify those pieces, then we can make a plan to move past those barriers, or have, you know, really strong if-then clauses about our mentality when we come up against some of those pieces, and giving it a name so that we can take care of that. And the second part about staying motivated around curiosity and interest, what's driving you to achieve those goals, as Romeo said. Sometimes you're going to have great professors who are so engaging and the interest is so, it's like the content is great. And sometimes you might not have a professor like that. The responsibility of learning, it still needs to be carried by you. So how are you going to want to be there? What are going to be the things that are going to be pillars in your understanding of how you engage in your academics, how you engage with peers and professors, that's going to keep you motivated throughout your academic semester in the fall and 3 or 4 years from now. So now is the time where we would like you, and Florence, if you could help, to break into breakout groups so you can chat with some of your peers, students who are going to engage in the same academic space as you, and think about strategies you might have brought from high school, or if you're already in the UTSC space. How do you plan to avoid procrastination? What are your steps of action? And maybe share what keeps you motivated to take up that paper, to start that essay, so that we can learn from our peers. That's again what university is all about, that learning and collaborative spirit. Florence, if you're able to, can you break our larger team into small groups for about 10 minutes? Okay, I think we've all come back from our breakout room. Thank you, Florence, for your support in that. I know I had some really good conversations with the folks in my space around being able to name some of the areas in which there are struggles in terms of procrastination and motivation, but then also working towards some strategies that can support in terms of student groups, math and stats support on campus, recognizing the importance of certain topics being an in-person learning mode, and others that might need to sit or are able to sit in an online environment. So just really being able to be reflective of learning strategies, which was fantastic. How about you, Romeo?
We had a blast. Yeah, we had a great time. We weren't I wasn't expecting it, but we kind of generated a little a list of a few apps. I just threw them here in the chat. So if you're interested in checking them out, they are free. So yeah, take a peek. I've never used it before. Coffee shop or Coffeetivity is great. I've used that, and it's just random coffee shop sounds. You can adjust your setting if you want it to be a train station, whatever. Life at was a really cool one because it actually applies the Pomodoro technique, which we're going to talk about very shortly. And then I Miss My Cafe, and then Forest app. If you've never used the Forest app, it's a fun little way to gamify your time management by planting a virtual tree. And as you accomplish your tasks, your tree will either grow or wither away and die, depending on how productive you are. So it's a fun time. I said I used to have it until my tree died, and then that was it. So, but thanks so much, folks, for sharing. Really appreciate it. And it was unexpected, but a very fun time generating this list. So,
Thanks for sharing. Another piece that we wanted to share with you, if my slide will move over, and it went too far, is the assignment calculator. And so this is a great resource. Just in essence of time, I'm not going to show the video, but the links are available in what Florence shared with you, so you can click through. And this is just a great place to enter your information about the type of project you need to work on, the start time that you would like to begin, the due date. But I would echo what Romeo said, push that due date even like a week out from when it's actually due, so you have time to edit, you have time to talk to your prof, you have time to sit with what's in that assignment before you actually submit it. And then it will small chunk the tasks that are required for you to complete it over the course of maybe a month, depending on when the assignment is due. And it takes some of the brain work around how the heck do I attack this particular project? And there are great resources and links to library, to the Writing Center, to ANCC, to student groups. It is a fantastic tool that can be used. You can print out a PDF so that you can put it in your binder, put it on the wall. Am I old when I say binder? Is that not? Yeah, okay. Thanks, Romeo.
tablet.
Tablet, okay. It's a great tool. So I strongly encourage you to hop into it and come back to it over and over again to set your assignments and timeline yourself so that you can get your projects and assignments done on time.
I love that. And if I can give you a good example of the whole honesty, tricking yourself thing. I'm not successful when assignments are due on Fridays at the end of the day. I'm just not, in my head, I tell myself, oh, so they really mean Monday morning before 9 a.m., right? You do. You just, you do. So I think in terms of backing up that due date, if something is due on a Friday, put on your calendar that it's due Wednesday. Wednesday rolls around, it gives you time to make some tweaks, adjustments. You submit it before your weekend kicks in, then you can relax on the weekend and enjoy some downtime, veg out, whatever the case might be. But it's about that reward piece, right? Taking care of yourself. Nothing wrong with that, but just make sure that you're budgeting your time for that. So how to get started in terms of time management, in terms of planning, there's a few techniques here that I will quickly zip through. So 5-minute plan, getting yourself started is always the hardest. So you only have 5 minutes to work on an awaiting task. After your 5 minutes, choose whether to stop or keep going. So this is kind of what we were talking about in our breakout room, the power of timing your tasks, really. Next one is the Pomodoro technique. That seems to be a bit of a favorite. Basically, you're going to be setting a timer for 25 minutes. Work until the Pomodoro rings, take a short break, 5 minutes, and then resume. So every 4 Pomodoros, take a 15 to 30-minute break. That's the whole idea of it. So again, 25-minute clusters is what you're looking at in terms of setting a timer with 5-minute breaks. Okay, so 25-minute timer, focus, 5-minute break, and stay true to that, right? Honor that 5-minute break. Even if you're in a flow, honor that, give yourself exactly 5 minutes to stretch, bio break, whatever you got to do, and then jump back into it. So Pomodoro technique is a classic. There's also the PREMAC principle. So you complete the more difficult or less desirable tasks first. You do these, the belief is that you will do you'll do the difficult tasks while you're feeling fresh, energized. This goes a little bit also into what Sarah said earlier about knowing yourself. So if you know that you are feeling refreshed and alert and you're able to tackle some of those difficult tasks at a certain time of day, then do that. And then the last approach is my personal favorite because I love immediate gratification when it comes to work, and that is called the first action approach. So you take whatever it is you can, take whatever the task is, whatever is sitting there, grab it and start taking care of it. Start with the simplest, smallest task, or the simplest and smallest action, and slowly build up and snowball into a larger and larger piece. So with the first action approach, I still recommend time, blocking that time and taking a break. However, the break looks more like a celebration because you've accomplished something in that 30 minutes. So again, first action approach, take time to have a break to celebrate what you've accomplished. And that, my friends, in a nutshell, is just some simple techniques that you can embrace. And so in our last 3 minutes, if we can, I kind of want to build what we did in our breakout room earlier. So there's a couple things. Let us know what technique you might try in the chat. Please feel free to share with us what you're gravitating toward. Is there anything that captured your attention in terms of this session, in terms of different techniques? But also, if there's any techniques or hacks that you have, any apps, any websites, please throw them in the chat. We'd love to add to our small but mighty list. And yeah, we'd love to learn from all of you. So with that, I suppose I will turn it back over to Sarah.
Again, strategies work when we work them, right? So making sure that you give it a fair shot. You don't try something or one day and then throw your hands up and say, it didn't work. Are you putting in the effort? Are you opening your planner in the morning, seeing what's available to you, looking at your time frame, and then actioning it? You should try these strategies for I would say the month of September, right? Try it for September, leading you into your exam time, and see if they're actually working for you. Of course, our office is always here to support with some tweaks along the way, but I think you'll be able to quickly realize what works for you and what doesn't, and then you can pivot and say, this is the one, the golden one. It might also depend on the content that you're learning. As we talked about motivation and interest, if it's something that's super easy for you, my brain space is language and literature, so I don't have to put a lot of effort into those spaces. If you ask me to do calculus, it's a completely different ballgame. I might need different strategies for that type of learning. So again, being reflective on where our strengths lie and our areas of support that need to be built up, because we can all learn to do these things, can also be really important. So the ones that you've got down to a science, work those as best you can. And the ones that need some extra support, rely on our offices and the resources on campus to help build those up so that you're equally matched across the different spaces.
I like what did you say earlier? It was smooth. I was like, oh, it was like, do you work your plan or plan to work or something like that?
You gotta work your strategies, which was more for me. That was
So
something I
true.
need to say because I tell
No, it's
students to do
true
this all the
though.
time and I forget. So
So it's so
work
true.
your strategies.
It's
Work
so
your
true,
strategies.
right? Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. If it's not enough to get pride and to feel like you've accomplished something by creating a list, right? That's okay. And you have the check boxes and it looks beautiful. But now it's time to get to work, right? The other thing is this, folks, my last 2 cents, please. It might be painful sometimes, right? It's going to be a struggle, but that is not indicative of you not being ready for university, right? This is just changes is challenging sometimes. So remember that the reward of planning and goal setting oftentimes comes at the end after you've accomplished that goal. So please keep that in mind. If you need a little punch in the shoulder, a little reminder, a bit of a pick me up, as Sarah said, hit us up. We'd love to chat with you and build on this session. So with that, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for joining us. I believe you received the PowerPoint, so everything is clickable, linkable, so you can find some of these pieces online through our website. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in whatever capacity in the fall. And much success and much luck for you as you move into your fall and winter semester.